Welcome, welcome, welcome to Notable Approvals. I am attorney Amanda Shaffer. We have another exciting case to talk about today. Before I get to that, two quick reminders. One, make sure that you like us and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, wherever you're watching this from, so that you don't miss any more lives. And if you find this video or any of our other videos helpful, please share it with your family and friends, or if you think someone you know might find it helpful, please share it with them. And then the second reminder, tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern Time or 5 p.m. Pacific Time, we will be having episode number 8 of Are You Smarter Than a Naturalized Citizen? We have two more immigration attorneys going head to head, a naturalized citizen from Canada and somebody who was born in Virginia. It's been a lot of fun, so if you're interested in what the naturalization test is like, tune in to find out, because they're the actual questions from the actual naturalization test, and you'll also get to learn a little bit about our great country. So our case today is about naturalization. It is about a client who is a native and was a citizen of Russia. And I'll tell you, I'll get to what's real interesting about this case shortly. But she initially received her green card in 2011, and she received it through her husband, who was also at the time a permanent resident. He actually naturalized shortly before she did. We've represented the Hall family in their immigration matters. They're all citizens now. And the reason that we were even concerned at all for her, she had no criminal history, their marriage was strong. She had just had another baby, but she had spent a lot of time outside the U.S. So there's a physical presence and a continuous residence requirement for naturalization. And what was relevant here, they're similar, but they're different. And what's relevant here is the physical presence. She wasn't applying based on 3 years of marriage, because I like to wave to my Instagram crowd, because she wasn't married to a U.S. citizen. So people who can naturalize after 3 years have to be married to a U.S. citizen for 3 years. So she had to wait the full 5 years, and she did. And so when you're waiting the full 5 years, you have to be inside the U.S. at least half the time. That's the same for the 3 years, but obviously half of 3 years is different than half of 5 years. So that's 30 months that you have to be inside the U.S., which is 913 days. One important note: when you're calculating the time that you're outside of the U.S., any time that you're outside of the U.S., even for the days that you take off and you land, that all counts as a day outside. So if you're not inside the U.S. for 24 hours in a day, you're considered outside. So what does this mean for counting? This means that, let's say I left the U.S. Today, and I'm coming back, what's today? Tuesday. Let's say I'm coming back Thursday. So I have to count Tuesday as 1, Wednesday as 2, and Thursday as 3. So that's 3 days outside the U.S. So you have to be very careful when you're counting this. And the way you do it, you can look up your travel history. It's not always accurate. They don't always have everything. You should have your stamps in your passport, but the stamps sometimes, especially if you go through a land border, they don't always stamp it. So you have to do your best. The truth of the matter is that USCIS has all of your travel history and knows all your entries and exits. Why they make you list it, I'm not entirely sure, but I've had this problem with people who travel a lot before, that, look, if you can't remember, bring me your passport. Then I'm going to try to match up the stamps, and I'm going to look at the travel history, try to match it to that. And basically all we could do is our best. You can go back and look for plane tickets and stuff like that, but I've never had USCIS actually require that. Maybe if you're closer in terms of how much time. So this client, like I said, she could have had up to 913 days in the last 5 years outside the U.S. She only had 365 days or 6 trips. So it was we weren't so concerned about the physical presence as we were about another requirement. I mentioned continuous residence. I'm not talking about that. That has to do with there's the time periods look at 6 months and a year. So if you're outside the U.S. for more than 6 months, you might break your continuous residence. I'm confusing them now. If you are outside the U.S. for more than a year without permission, like you didn't apply for permission in advance to be outside for more than a year, which is a reentry permit essentially, then there's a presumption that you did break your presence. And then if you've been outside for more than a year without permission, I just said without permission. With permission, you don't. Without permission, you may. And you have to prove no, look, I still have my residence, I still pay taxes, blah, blah, blah. So we weren't worried about that. What we were worried about is the residence requirement with respect to jurisdiction. And what that means is that you have to have resided in a state or the District of Columbia for 3 months, the 3 months prior to filing your application, to establish that that office where your residence has jurisdiction over your application. This means if you live in New York right now and you move to New Jersey, you live in New York for a month, you move to New Jersey, and you're there for 2 months, and then you apply for naturalization, and you haven't been living yet in New Jersey for 3 months, New Jersey doesn't have jurisdiction. I know the question is probably, well, then, does New York? I'm actually not sure of that answer. What I would say is probably the easiest thing would be I would say to the client, let's just wait another month. Because regardless, New York may want to transfer it. It's easier for you. I mean, New York, New Jersey isn't a big deal, but let's say you move to California and you have the same split with you haven't been in California long enough. Even if New York has jurisdiction, now you're coming back to New York for this interview. I don't know if they'll change venue because you can't technically file a change of address. But that getting more complicated than we need. Point is this: 3 months before you file your application, you have to have resided in the same place. Now, for this client, she had a residence in New Jersey. The issue was that we applied in October, and from June to September, she was outside the country. So we were a little concerned that they may have said, well, I mean, technically speaking, they could have made the argument that she resided outside of the U.S. for part of that 3-month period, and therefore New Jersey didn't have jurisdiction yet to adjudicate the application. And remember, you don't necessarily know that there's no jurisdiction until you go to your interview. So that could be a year after you file, and now all of a sudden you get denied and you have to start all over. So it's very frustrating when that happens. In this situation, this client had to leave the country again. So we had to get it filed. She waited to get her citizenship before she left, but we were a little concerned about the 3 months. So we came prepared. We brought with us proof that she didn't abandon her residence for the 3 months. They still had their residence, were paying taxes, she was just taking a vacation. We brought proof she was on vacation. So that was like a little quirk in her case, but it could have gone a different way if we weren't prepared with the evidence, because they did ask about it. They wanted to make sure that what her activities were and what her intentions were. And, it was a pretty easy interview otherwise, because like I said, no criminal history, there wasn't even a question about her marriage because she applied after 5 years. So all in all, it went great. And one of the nice things about, depending on where you apply for your citizenship, at least back then, this was a few years ago, in Newark, they were able to do her oath ceremony the same day that they approved the application, that same day that she had the interview. So that was pretty cool. And I've actually gotten to go, I think I did that once in Federal Plaza, but it's, I think, rare these days. But anyways, I've always said that my favorite thing to do is to go with a client to a naturalization interview and, be there when they finally learn they're becoming a U.S. citizen. It does mean a lot to us. And it's something that you can't really experience in any other context. But point is that with this case is if you travel outside the U.S. a lot, especially if you're applying based on 3 years, then it's the 3-year period before applying. applying based on 5 years, it's the 5-year period before applying. Make sure you check with an experienced immigration attorney. My contact information has been scrolling across the bottom of your screen. I'll be happy to help. But you want to make sure that there's not going to be any questions, because even if you are outside for more than 30 months or 6 months, it doesn't mean that USCIS can't necessarily question it. So you need to be prepared, because you don't really want to waste your time and have your statutory period start all over. So it's very important you get that checked out. It's just as important as if you have criminal history, to make sure that that's not going to be a problem when you apply as well. So that is all today for notable approvals. Don't forget to like us and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, wherever else we are. Share this video if you found it helpful or know somebody who would. And tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern time or 5 p.m. Pacific time, we do have a Californian. That is why we're talking in Pacific time as well. We will be having episode 8 of our game show, Are You Smarter Than a Naturalized Citizen? If you're preparing for your naturalization test, it's a great way to learn some of the questions about what's on the test, to get a feel for it, and to see if these immigration attorneys know anything about the country that they're helping people get citizenship to. So it's a lot of fun. We hope you join us. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out and contact me. Happy to help. And thank you all for watching. I'm going to try to be back tomorrow with another notable approval. But I do have court, so I have a trial, so I might not be. If not, I'll see you at 9 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific time. Have a great day.